What's up, everybody? Craig Lieberman coming back at you today at Top Rank Imports, sitting here again with the GTR guru of the United States, Sean Morris.
Hi, how are you?
We got some stuff to talk about today. So, a little letter went out to owners in Florida. Tell the story.
I heard rumors about this a while ago, and this has been going on since 2021, and obviously much before then, but the letter went out like revoking title of 348 cars in Florida.
340, okay. How many illegal cars do you think have been brought in over the years?
I mean, I would say illegal cars, probably at least, 800,000. I mean, just even relatively recently in Florida. So I'm saying like this particular action is one place, one set of cars that's currently titled or still hasn't been transferred title. And so there's probably still, even now, even if they looked into these guys, there's probably still another 400, 500, 600 cars out there.
The joke of this is, or the comedy about this is, living in California, we see a lot of cars with Montana plates. We see a lot of GTRs with Florida plates, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that was because you could get anything titled in Florida back in the day, I remember.
Yeah, and we used to, I'd always joke about it. We would always talk about this sort of thing. I'd actually shown like these guys Soho Imports back in 2014, I had some stuff that said, these guys are fraudulently filling out paperwork. And so I posted to the blog and said, here, this is the fraudulent paperwork that these guys are producing.
That's on your GTR USA blog.
No, it's on the imported vehicle info.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So, and again, I've had it out there forever and said, hey, these guys have fraudulent paperwork, and this is how it was on an S15. And of course, like again, over the years, nobody gets caught, nobody gets busted. So people think they're bulletproof.
Right. Then you had J-Spec, right?
Yeah, there's a few different places. The Soho Alliance, Soho Imports. But this is only really one guy. And so the thing that I don't know if it scares me or should scare other people or whatever is that if they start to look in if you're in Florida or you're DMV, you can look S15. And you can see, okay, all of these cars were registered by these guys, but how many other S15s were registered by other people? Mm-hmm. So are there other enforcement actions going on? And then also DHS or Homeland Security, what are they doing?
So for people who don't know what DHS does as a role as a government agency, let's explain it to them.
Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
It used to be U.S. Customs, mm-hmm. right? We used to say, U.S. Customs, but then, after 9/11, they sort of went Homeland Security. They sort of went into this much more broad branch. Generally speaking, when we're talking about enforcement action, it's Immigrations Customs Enforcement, ICE. Mm-hmm. So, that's just basically the agency that goes after you if you have illegal stuff or came across the border, if you're an undocumented alien or mm-hmm. undocumented vehicle in this case.
Also, when you're bringing stuff through the ports, they're inspecting that cargo, right? And there's
very little though. I've written about how little they actually. This numbers are like staggering. How many cars? I think before, because being driven across the border and everything else, I think it's like 200,000 cars a day come across the border. And there's like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of containers. They look at like 1%.
Yeah.
And so even that 1% is still thousands of containers, right? But if you play the odds, you may be good. You may the first container full of R34s, you may get popped on. You may import 100 containers of them and never get popped, right? So it just depends on the odds of what something could be. So it's just, so both those agencies, obviously, that letter was from the Florida DMV. And they're pretty clear in there that's just us. This is just us.
So let's talk about the content of the letter. It essentially says it's been posted on the internet. A lot of the blogs have covered it. Yep. Drive, Haggerty, we were talking about earlier. Yep. But in layperson's terms, what does it basically say?
It basically says, we've revoked the titles of all these cars. You're not allowed to title these cars ever again anywhere in the US. They say that you may be able to export it, you may be able to keep it, you may be able to, just turn it into customs. And the thing about it is you got to be real careful with the wording because it's sort of ambiguous, and you got to understand, like, if you look at this letter and say, oh, it says I can export it. That's not what it says. That is not what this letter says. So if you have one of these cars or you have any one of these other cars, you better talk to a lawyer before you do anything, before you take it apart, before you buy one, before you sell one, before you try to export one.
Before you part it out and build 3 cars out of it, that kind of stuff. And the funny thing is, we were talking about this earlier, it's considered contraband, and contraband is an all-encompassing word. It was like, you know, can you go down to police station and say, can you test my cocaine to see if it's pure?
You're right.
Right?
Yeah, I got robbed in a drug deal. I mean, you can do it, right? And people do, but it's sort of the same thing. It's like, look, these cars, they're saying they're contraband. And the thing is that not all these cars are. And I know, and I think I said, I told you before we doing the interview, we have at least one customer's car on here. And I've talked to some other people that have cars that they said came in after 25 years old, and they use these guys to title it. And so they've flagged everything that these guys do.
Sure.
Now we know that there's bad cars on here. There's a lot of R34s and S15s and stuff that we know aren't 25 years old, don't fall into any of the HS7 categories. They don't fall under any of the 3520-1 EPA categories, but not all of them are. And now they say like all these cars are done completely forever. Well, some of the stuff is gonna have to be fixed. I can't have customers that bought cars off of me, legit imported cars, and them not be able to title it,
sure.
Or the subject to seizure. So there are a couple lawyers out there. 2 of the lawyers would be, there's the basically head of the Office of Vehicle Safety and Compliance, which is Coleman Sachs. And Coleman Sachs has his own private practice. He's in Washington, D.C. And he was the guy who ran the department. He was in charge for most of the time show display is in effect. He's actually a pretty decent guy. I mean, I've dealt with him before. Even when he was at the NHTSA, he was actually a pretty decent guy to deal with, even though they gave me a hard time a few times, but that's okay, that's their job.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. So, and then you've got Will Hedrick, who's the defender of the defenders. And so Will Hedrick does a lot of stuff with customs. He managed to get a lot of those defenders back for all those people. And I think in this case, like these guys with these cars are gonna have to talk to, either one of these 2 guys.
Where is he?
Will is in one of the Carolinas. Sorry,
there's only 2 of them. Should be easy to.
One of them. Sorry, Will.
So
I'm not paying that much attention.
What's going on here is like what you're talking about, forgery of paperwork. I saw that on the Soho thing, the stamp, you put arrows all on this paper. I was looking at last week, and I was like, how can they be just so?
I mean, the thing is that once they get over, once they get over on it once, then they just kind of keep getting on it. And so I don't really know how. I never really delved into actually how they're doing it. I don't know if they just had somebody in the DMV they were paying off, or if they're actually forging the paperwork. Because I mean, that's always a possibility. I mean, you hear about it all the time here too. People get, driver's licenses, somebody's paying, somebody in the DMV, paying this guy and this guy a couple $100 or $500.
Yeah, there's corruption anywhere. Why not in the Florida DMV, right?
Sure. And, and the same at the port and customs, the same thing. If you're paying off somebody, a few $100, $500 per car or per, whatever it is, yeah, they're just gonna, they just accidentally release it to you.
As a consumer, you have to ask the question. I can go down to AAA and title my car for $40, right? Why is J-Spec or Soho charging $2,400? There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You're paying for the forged documents and the payoff for the DMV, or what's going on, maybe?
I mean, the DMV, in general can be a difficult agency to deal with, and so then, some people are like, oh, maybe that's just how it is. Maybe that's just sort of what the cost, because they don't want to have to deal with all the things associated with it. Of all of these cars, we know not all of them are bad.
Right.
And
not all the bad ones are on this list.
And not all the bad ones are on this list.
So
there's a lot more that are out there. And so the thing is, it's like they say that these cars were, probably currently titled in Florida. Now, I don't know Florida's definition for what that is, but a lot of the times, obviously, you said you'll see cars here, with a Florida plate. So maybe somebody gets it registered in Florida, they're driving it here in California, and they just every year they send in the money to to renew the plate, and if they don't have to do anything, then it's fine. But then maybe they're one of these cars went to Ohio, or it went to Colorado, or it went to New Jersey, or it went to wherever it is, Texas, and they've transferred the Florida title to a Texas title, so it's not going to show up on this list,
right? But it
has a Texas title.
But like you were saying earlier,
DHS has that information. And so, you know, the thing is that, you know, even though you have one of these cars that came from Florida, you may still be subject to something happening. And then all of a sudden you could get, you know, like what happened in the Kaizo case, which is like SWAT teams showed up at people's houses.
Right.
You know, I mean, these are still cars. I mean, like generally speaking, right? I mean, you know, not all the guys doing this are hardened criminals. You know, they're bringing in cars, they're doing that kind of stuff. And yeah, you have the full, you know, a few of the guys, I mean, and we know the guys too. Both you and me know the people that had this happen to them.
Yeah.
Where they had full SWAT teams in full gear,
absolutely,
you know, full assault raid stuff come to their place. And the people we know are not, you know, they're not
criminals.
They're
they just
regular
caught up
people.
in an investigation where they're looking for some shady going on, and you know, they decided.
They had, you know, cops outside with submachine guns.
Yeah. So
you know, and body armor. You
right.
know, I mean, and it's silly, but that's, you know, that's where it landed.
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Here's my nightmare scenario that I was thinking about the other day. So you bought one of these cars in Florida, and you did it 8 years ago.
Yep.
And you moved to Texas, and you got the car titled there. Then you moved to Vegas, and got the car titled there, no problem. You've been paying assurance, stated value from any one of the companies who are doing stated value policies. And then all of a sudden, the car can't get titled anymore. Yeah. It's revoked.
I have an even worse scenario than that, which is basically not you moving from place to place, but you sold the car, and now the third or fourth guy has the car. And he has no idea.
And he spent a lot of money.
He spent a lot of money, and he has no idea. Look, to him, to most people, like some people will say, oh, he should have done his due diligence, all that stuff. And it's like,
how far back do you go?
Exactly. You know, I mean, just even me as a dealer, if I see a car for sale on the corner, you know, and I go and I look at the car and I do all the stuff, and I go to the guy, and the guy has a title and it's in his hand, and I look at it, and we talk, and, you know, we do all those kinds of things, and I want to buy the car, you know, to resell or do whatever I'm going to do with it. I'm not going to go like too crazy deep in, you know, I'm not going to, you know, and so then the thing is that just me as a dealer, I would buy it. But let's just say that now it turns out that, you know, it's a stolen car.
Right.
And it happens to people. And the thing is, like, you know, I wasn't going to look for a stolen car, but the guy selling it knew it was, you know, stolen. But again, this kind of thing happens. And me as a dealer, I wouldn't expect, you know, I could be fooled.
Sure.
And so then now you have a guy who has this, you know, whatever R33, even, you know, there's R32s on this list. So R32 is good now, right? It's over, you know, basically it's been good since 2014. But let's just say this car came in 2012, you know, and so it came in when it wasn't legal, and now it's gotten popped. Mm-hmm. So, you know, where are we? The importers that are doing this stuff wrong are you know, there's a hot potato, you know, basically you're passing this hot potato until the last guy who happens to hold it, he's the one who gets burned. And so, you know, the guys illegally importing it, they're causing all the problems. And those are the guys that I've always said, you know, look out, you know, watch, you know what you're doing, all that kind of thing.
I mean, I don't understand this online culture of saying you're ratting these people out. I'm not pointing at you, I'm just saying people are ratting these people out. These people are out to screw people.
Yeah.
Okay, period. End of story. And if you're okay with that, then you are absolutely part of the problem. I'll say it.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy stolen goods, you know, if you're buying, you know, fancy stuff off the corner, then, and you get, you know, the same, you get caught up in that, that's what you get caught up in. You know, if you want to buy out of a van from a guy, you know, like, it's probably not legit, right? You know, if you're buying a car from a shady guy, you know, then it probably is no good. Now, the thing is that, too, you know, like most of these, we don't know for sure, but there definitely are, you know, stolen cars out there. And I don't know if any of these will ever get popped against Interpol or anything like that.
You know what else I'm really concerned about, or curious about? There are a few people who have R34s in this country that are racing them, competing with them, and they're not driving them on the street, or not currently driving them on the street. Mm-hmm. Certain cars that are not show and display.
Yeah.
And I have to wonder if any of those people are going to be caught up in that.
Like, I don't know how many more people in Florida are going to, and again, the thing is that, you know, all they got to do is follow the paths. Mm-hmm. you know, and you're gonna start to see, you know, when you see that one person titled however many cars he titled, and you're gonna have all of that information.
It's a house of cards going to come down. Now let me ask you another question. You have this car right now and you said, oh, I don't want to get stuck with this. So you find a way to get the car out of the country and send it over to Japan. Now let's wait until the 25-year rule applies. Yep. I know the answer, but I want the audience to have the answer.
Hear it, yes.
So then in 2024, they say, okay, now I can bring it back. The coast is clear.
And they say no. On this letter, it says that DHS has all of the chassis numbers, and the cars can never be brought back into compliance, which isn't right. I don't agree with that at all. I think that if you export it and you bring it back in and you pay them their tariff, like, it's done. Like, I think that you've done your retribution, you know, because I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But so, you know, because before this, you know, because there was a little period of time before this list existed, and I was like, they're not doing anybody any favors not knowing what all the cars are on this list, because, you know, basically, if, like you said, if one of these cars does, because the same, you could just throw the cars in a box in a container and just ship it out, right? Without declaring it as cars or whatever. And so now that you know, that box is back in Japan, they take it out, they run it through auction. I mean, we'll buy it probably. Yeah. I mean, I would probably buy it, because if I see it running through auction and it's, you know, right? And we're gonna buy it to resell it. How do I know that the cars? Well, I mean, I know now what's on this list. You know, that these cars are being flagged, but
you don't have the full list. We don't know. We don't know what else is pending.
We don't know what else is pending.
Right.
Right. So there might be nothing. Right. This may be the end of it. That's it. This may just be the very, very tip.
No, a lot of scenarios going through my devious head. I got an R34, it's illegal. I'm gonna basically disassemble the parts and scatter them around my kingdom. The front fender is going to California, the other front fender is going to Seattle, and then when this all blows over, I'm gonna put the car back together.
I mean, sure, it's possible, you know, and it happened, and it even happened in the Kaizo situation, and it's happened before, you know, when in other situations. You know, there's the possibility that, again, if DHS comes and they want to talk to you, and they want to say, well, you know, this was obviously a complete car. Here's your Instagram posts. So, and now this is just a chassis. So where's the rest of the parts?
Social media.
So, you know, whatever it might be, right? And they may say, you know, we would like you to you know, turn all this contraband over to us. And you may say, well, I don't have it. I sold it off, or whatever. And they say, okay, well, that's fine. We'll just start finding you, or, you know, whatever they're gonna do. Right, whatever they're gonna do, right? And you're like, you're gonna say, well, this letter said I may be able to export it, and they say, that's not us. That's Florida. We're DHS. We're federal agency.
Different agency. Completely different.
That's not us.
It's like fighting the post office over a UPS package.
Yep, exactly. So you're just, you know, you're not there. And again, the scary part is I don't know where or what else is coming, or if anything. And if something is coming, then, you know, then there's a lot more cars out there.
I have to wonder what triggered this in the first place.
I heard there was like basically the same almost as the Kaizo thing, which is like one guy, one thing, sort of pissed the wrong person off. And then, you know, people with ties to Homeland Security, and then start looking into it, and you just piss the wrong person off, and they just, you know, just start coming after you and do all this crazy stuff.
John Stagnant of Black Ops, man, they're still looking for that guy.
Yeah, again, he's not the only guy, right?
No, of course not.
There's quite a lot of them out there. But a lot of people are using this guy to title. But how many, and then how many more are out there? How many more are still doing stuff right now? Oh, there's tons. I saw on Facebook some guy was saying about cars coming into Texas. You know, he's going to be bringing in R34s into Texas starting in March. Okay, cool.
Ruts a ruck.
Yeah, right. You know, I mean,
it's my Japanese
it's possible to do, for sure.
You can. Who was telling me this story? We're talking about moving to Italy, right? And he says, well, I couldn't move to Italy because you can't have guns there, okay? Because he's into guns, my buddy, right? He's not a crazy guy. He just likes guns, right?
Right.
But you can't really bring them over there. It's a hassle to do that. He says, and the cargo containers, I'm going to have hollowed out floors, and I'm going to stick my guns in it, all that kind of stuff. I said, good luck with that. How much bail money do you think you're going to need to have?
Right.
Right. So he put the kibosh on that. He's not going to do that, of course, but...
You know, the X-ray containers, right?
Yeah.
I've had containers X-rayed before. Like, it's X-rayed. And you know, so one of the first few Nismos I imported, there was an extra transmission for the car in the trunk or something, and so it got flagged, and they X-rayed it, and they saw that they saw that stuff, and then they had to pay to unload it and all that stuff. And so there's a place called Price Transfer where they do all the unloading and that. Everything was fine. Everything was good.
Yeah.
The only thing is it ends up costing you several more $1,000s to do it because you pay for that kind of stuff to happen. So and again, that's just me, and I know other people that have had containers with car parts and other things flagged.
Didn't this just happen? There was a container that got seized, and there was a bunch of cars. No, this is in the last 12 months. I think it came through Canada or something. The one that one of the companies that everybody's buying cars from in Japan, and it came over to the United States, and they pulled a bunch of cars out of there that was just to be parts.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens. The thing is, and a lot of the times, what I say to some people too is that, most guys don't brag when that stuff happens.
Yeah.
We don't even know how many containers actually get flagged and pulled, because most people aren't like, oh, my container full of illegal cars got popped.
Yeah, so the simple fact of the matter is that besides you guys, is there anybody else even doing this stuff legally?
Yeah, I mean, there are.
There?
I mean, yeah, there's several, several different dealers around. So, and there's places that Florida, almost always Florida is just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It has for a long time. There's still other guys out there in Florida.
Texas.
These guys in Texas, Virginia, a couple guys in Virginia, a couple guys in, up north, stuff like that. So, I mean, we're pretty big. We've been doing this for a long time.
All right. So your history goes back a long, long, long way.
So yeah, I mean, from New Zealand, basically my dad was, importing some American cars to New Zealand. They had some really strange laws there then. So American cars, actually stuff for funerals, like funeral cars, like
hearses.
They're using station wagons as hearses and stuff like that, old American station wagons. And so then came here to the States in 1980, and then Dad's car dealer and selling cars. And so then around '89 we started selling some American cars to Japan. So we're like Corvettes and Trans Ams and, oddly enough, Volvo wagons and some other oddball stuff. And then we went into the bubble economy and went in Japan when it was real big. So we had a couple of really good customers. We had Ford GT40, we had a bunch of different Ferraris, we had Porsche 550A, we had all of these really kind of cool stuff. So when I was 16, we were dealing with that stuff, and then that part of the Japan slowed down the exotic stuff, but then the Astra vans picked up.
Remember, because the Japanese love the vans, man.
The Astra vans, we shipped 5,000 or more Astra vans to Japan.
That's where they all went.
That's and there was tons of other guys that used to do them too, and we would do raised roof, and we'd do lowered, and we did Taurus wagons, we did Suburbans and all kinds of stuff like that. But the Astra vans were the king.
And for those of you who've driven those or own those, they were nothing special, but they got turned into lowrider things and Bo Suzuka stuff.
And again, basically, good place to have sex.
Yeah. Shagging wagons.
Seats, shagging wagon, full flat seats, basically full flat seats, all the wood and with TVs.
Because a lot of young men still lived with their parents until their late 20s, early 30s, and rent's very expensive, of course.
And so
So I remember that. Yeah, so you want what you can't have,
The Astra vans are decent things. They're fine. They're 4.3.
They're better than the Windstars were.
Yeah, I mean they're fine. Again, as far as a vehicle is concerned, they're really they last a long time. They're decently kind of easy and common things, right? The 4.3 engine is super common. It's based off the 350 architecture, so small block Chevy architecture, sort of. Don't nitpick me on that. And then and then transmission 700 R4, which is the same. It's an every damn thing. And so the thing itself was fine,
And then you segued into Motorex and was late 99?
So basically, some of the guys that we were even exporting cars with, they started Motorex. So that was one of our customers, actually, Aircraft, or Advanced International, was one of our customers that we sold Astra vans to, and they actually were the ones who provided the funding for Motorex.
Okay, so that's how it started.
So that's Hero and Noto and all that stuff then. And then I started working Motorized in '99, and then we did crash testing and certification, all that stuff. And so I worked there till 2002
when it started
to really get really crappy. Yeah, so Youre was just, again, we talked before about this, about the hostess bars, like to go out and play a little too much, not really pay attention to the business. And the selling the Skylines and stuff then was still hard. I mean, the prices weren't that expensive, they're way cheaper than we're selling cars for now.
Oh goodness gracious, yes.
And so, but it was still sort of a struggle to sell. The market wasn't really ready for it then.
Yeah.
And so, but now, 2014, when the R32 GTR started to turn 25, is when really things started to pick up, right? And a lot of people say, oh, well, that's when the 25-year-old Act went into effect, and it's actually not, right? The Import Safety Vehicle Compliance Act of 1988.
Yeah.
So they'd been around since '88. You're allowed to bring in cars that are 25 years old, exempt from federal motor vehicle safety standards. And in typical government fashion, EPA is actually, in original configuration, exempt at 21. California, we have our own EPA. California stuff is all different. It's got to be 67 or older to be exempt. 75 or newer, they call it direct import. We've got to bring it into compliance. And that's all besides even smog or even, local title registration. A lot of people do not understand that the federal government handles the importation of the vehicle. Local governments handle title and registration. And it's two different things. And
each having own requirements.
And each have their own requirements, each have their own things. And because, I'll even have, I just had an email from somebody recently talking about insurance and like, hey, my insurance says they're not going to title or not going to re-register my insurance but they should know this car's 25 years old and it's exempt. And I'm like, insurance is a private company. They can do whatever they want. If they don't want to be involved with these cars, then they don't need to be involved. So, it doesn't even matter even on a state level. If the state decides that they don't want to allow this vehicle to be registered, then they can decide not to allow you to register it. And you see, there's certain levels, it's ambiguous in certain states. California is a hassle. California is expensive, but California, I have a path. It's a clear path. This is what I need to do in order to bring a car into California compliance. It costs money, we got to get it to the lab, we got to get it labeled, done in the lab, bar labeled, CHP, good to go. That is my steps, and then the car is California legal. Some states are like, there's some stuff about Maine and Delicas and other places with mini trucks and other, Hawaii is like, well, you've got to have headlights and do the other things and, different places. And like nobody really, there's a lot of the stuff and it doesn't really seem to have a clear answer. And, I like it to be clear, like tell me, if something has to have, we export RVs to Australia and, the RVs, they had to have a left side door, but the problem is that the rules just said door. What's your definition of a door? What's my definition of a door? What's the definition of the door of the guy who's looking at this thing? So the problem that I have is that it doesn't say that a person needs to get through it. It doesn't say anything like that. So then the problem is that if you show up with something, the whole side of the camper could be a door and they could say, well, no, that's not good enough. It's too big. Or you could show up with something like this, and I could say that's a door. I can pass things through there. That's not big enough for a person to get through. I'm like, here's your rules. That's not what it says. If it says a person has to be able to get through it, So the same, again, California, we just know. I know what I need to do. This is what we need to do. It costs money.
And this is what you're paying for when you go through a reputable importer or exporter.
And then basically, you can mess things up when you import.
Sure.
It's, a lot of guys are like, oh, it was easy. I did it myself and and all. And it's like, yeah, like anything. You can do anything. You can build your own house. You can cut your own hair. You can do, kidney surgery on yourself too.
Sure.
But there's certain things you probably shouldn't, and that and the same with importation. You can definitely do it yourself. You can also mess it up so bad that you lose your car.
Yeah.
Because you didn't declare it right. Somebody, you give it, even somebody who brings it in, like like in this case, like if your legit car came in and they titled it with Soho, you're flagged bad. And you've got to fix that. And like I said, I have at least one customer that's like that now. Our stuff is good. And now we're going to have to, I need to help this customer to a point. I need to figure
because he
out.
got on that list because he was guilty by association. His list, his number was, or chassis number was on that list because it was when going through the same office, perhaps even the same DMV clerk.
Yeah.
Or the same person who was trying to get it titled.
Yeah. So, and again, because some people are like, oh, well, this guy can title your JDM car for you. Okay, cool. How much is it? 24. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, again, it sounds, the number sounds ridiculous to some, but other people, it's just
a number.
Just a number.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends, and we'll see you next time.